Hello and welcome back to my No Buy Year. Today's topic is anxiety and the just-in-case purchase. So my family was on our way to see an air show here in Omaha, and I was thinking about the video I filmed a little while ago about minimalist rules that don't work for me all the time. And one of those rules was the just-in-case rule. And the premise of it is that you don't need to keep things for just in case. I was thinking about how many of us do feel comforted by having things just in case. And in fact, I believe a lot of marketing is designed to make us feel like we need these things just in case. And I guess that's why it's one of the minimalist rules, right? You don't need to keep things just in case. So I guess I wanted to expand upon that idea a little bit further because I believe I kind of just said it doesn't really work for me because it's not practical to get rid of all these things, and being a conscious consumer means not getting rid of things arbitrarily, and you might actually need things just in case. But this time I wanted to approach the topic from the angle of the feelings of anxiety that we have in relation to being prepared, having what we need, not being caught out without something that might have helped us at the time. Now, when I mention anxiety, I am not diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, but I have experienced episodes of anxiety in the past. There was a time that I believe, looking back, that I was experiencing something like a panic attack, and I actually went to the emergency room because I thought my heart was failing. And I mean, looking back, it does feel a little bit silly, having had all the tests done, the EKGs, the chest x-rays, and nothing showed up, and being a relatively young, and I hesitate to say healthy person because I really don't exercise, and I really need to cultivate that habit, if only as a result of these kind of medical issues and the need to keep my health. But looking back, I can see how it looks ridiculous that somebody like me would have gone to the ER thinking I was having a heart attack. However, it just is a testament that when anxiety and panic strikes, it can strike anybody, first of all, and it feels like a true emergency. It feels the sensations in your body really ring alarm bells that something has gone horribly wrong. So while I don't necessarily suffer with anxiety clinically on a daily basis, I do have some understanding about what it can be like to suffer from that. I also recently got diagnosed as being hyperthyroid, which gives you more of the symptoms of anxiety. The elevated heart rate, palpitations, sometimes the sweating and intolerant to heat, and feelings of nervousness, and in my case, more health hypochondriac tendencies. So again, I really need to get the exercise under control so that I can at least tell myself, at least I exercise, eat healthy, get enough sleep and all that, but more on that later perhaps. Anyway. So that is my perspective on anxiety as a whole, and the clarification that when I refer to anxiety, I'm not necessarily referring to it as the clinical term, but just as the general feeling of anxiousness, even if I do have a little bit of perspective on what it might be like as the clinical term. And then finally, at the end of this video, I would like to propose some questions to ask ourselves before we purchase something to kind of try to pinpoint what the anxiety is that this ad or this product is trying to target and trying to alleviate. So there might be a little bit of a flowchart template of questions to follow when we're considering a purchase. So there are many categories where we go out of our comfort zone as human beings. Some of these could be temporary, like travel. Some of them could be new phases of life, like a new job, becoming a parent, getting a new pet, going to a new school. Anything new is kind of an area where we may develop a sense of nervousness or anxiety over the situation. And lo and behold, anytime there is a sense of anxiety built into a situation, there is a product geared to fulfill that anxiety or to alleviate it and promise you relief if you make that purchase. There are tons of travel products designed to make things easier, ensure you don't forget your medication, ensure that you have all the storage for your jewelry or your passports, divided luggage for your clothes, the tech gear to keep you entertained on the flights, the maps for navigating your way. Some of this might be legitimate. Some of this might fulfill real needs in your life. However, a lot of it is excessive and only for temporary situations in a normal person's life. And so is it really worth purchasing a specific item to alleviate this temporary need? Or are the feelings of anxiety, nervousness, not knowing exactly what we might encounter, conspiring to make us more likely to purchase these kinds of things that we may regret later and may end up letting go of when we're no longer in that situation? I think when we're traveling, for example, it's easy to forget that if we're going somewhere inhabited by humans, chances are we'll be able to find what we need at our destination. And then anytime you start something new, we've got back to school season that passed, we've got new jobs, we've got becoming parents. There's a whole horde of products marketed towards those situations. New supplies, a new wardrobe, new gadgets and gizmos to help you make this transition more easily. As somebody who is fairly recently a new parent, it kind of makes me mad to see all of the products that promise to make this stage of life easier, when in reality, it's temporary and nothing can really make it easier. Part of becoming a new parent is that you've added a whole new person to your life, and that person will have good days and bad days. They'll have their own difficulties. And much of the time, when a very young person is having a difficulty, you can't throw a product at that problem. They just have to learn. Babies cry a lot. They're learning how to be in the world. And these products are so often marketed to the parents to help with our struggles. But really, I think the best way to help in that period of struggle is just the understanding that when kids cry, they are having a hard time. They're not trying to give us a hard time as their parent. And the best thing we can do is to be there and help them through that hard time. So many products market making life more convenient for us, but I think that convenience is actually nullified by the fact that we have a whole nother object in our spaces to manage. But the topic of convenience might be a whole other dedicated video, so I will leave that for that day. But anyway, it just makes me mad when companies and brands try to prey on the anxieties of humankind by throwing things at us that are available for purchase, taking advantage of the fact that humans like to feel safe and prepared, especially when entering a new situation. Taking advantage also of the fact that humans are more and more disconnected, and we feel less able to ask favors of other people in our new situations. We feel less supported in our societies. We feel like we're imposing on our neighbors when we go ask for a cup of sugar, or imposing on our coworkers when we ask for help with so many tasks in our early days at the job. We feel like we're imposing on the general public if we take children out and about and they're just being children, having a hard time learning whatever they're currently dealing with, and other people around us don't tolerate that well. And I'm not saying that everybody has to tolerate or enjoy children, but I am saying that our society is not set up for having spaces that are conducive to being welcoming for children. If enough people have problems dealing with children, perhaps there should be sections for children on the airplane. Perhaps there should be restaurants that are acceptable for children that are also nice for parents, by the way. I'm not talking about the Chuck E. Cheeses of the world. I'm talking about normal restaurants that have designated children areas. So there are other solutions for people who really dislike children to avoid children. I'm not saying people are wrong if they don't like kids. Although everybody was a baby once, everybody was a child once. So perhaps I am a little bit on the side that people are wrong if they can't tolerate children in public. And again, even more so for anybody with special needs. I hear heartbreaking stories sometimes about how parents of children with special needs feel like they can't go anywhere because if the child has a hard time, they'll be looked at very rudely. Sometimes comments will be made, sometimes they'll be asked to leave. And this is kind of heartbreaking that we have such a low tolerance these days. Some people have such a low tolerance of the needs of others. Now, back to the matter at hand, the anxiety that pushes us to purchase. What can we do about it? What can we do to combat these forces of marketing that are targeting these anxieties? So the first thing that I think we could try is to pinpoint what that anxiety is. Why are we wanting to make this purchase? Is there a situation in our lives that is driving us to look for something to fulfill this need? Are we going on a trip? Are we starting a new thing? Are we bringing something new into our lives? Do we feel unprepared? Do we feel like we're not going to fit in if we don't have the right thing? What is the anxiety that thing is seeking to fill? Is it a health thing, like it has been for me in recent history of buying regrets with the saga of the greens powder? So what is the anxiety? The second question to consider before we buy something related to this anxiety is this problem that I might be having a forever situation? Or is it temporary? If we're nervous about traveling, if we're nervous about a job interview, if we're nervous about starting something new, is that going to be a nervousness that we always feel? Or will it go away the more comfortable we become in that environment? Do I really need something to help me in that transition? Or is it just going to be a period of elevated stress and nervousness no matter what I do? And should I hold off on the purchase? Because is it really going to help? And oftentimes the purchase doesn't really help anyway, even if it gives the illusion of comfort. Sometimes it might just be better to wait it out or to accept that situations are going to be a little uncomfortable for a while, and then they will pass. Even if it does seem to be a permanent solution, it might be wise to wait long enough to ascertain that it is permanent, and also to assess what we truly need for that permanent situation. Because some of the things that we're told that might help us really won't help us in the long run, and we might discover that without having to purchase it if we just wait a little bit longer before adding anything new to that situation. And humans are actually full of ingenuity. There's the phrase of MacGyvering something, right? We have the ability to use what we have to fulfill our needs a lot of the time. And I think the marketing industry wants us to forget that, wants us to forget our human ingenuity. And let's not, right? Let's not waste our creativity. Let's maybe try to approach it with that kind of fun spirit, see if we can MacGyver our way or jerry-rig our way or whatever the other phrases are. See if we can use what we have to help us feel better about these transitional times. Or even relying on the support of others, seeking support from others by asking for favors and also repaying with favors, trying to create that relationship with actual other people in our society, maybe people who have gone through that transition themselves before and can access that area of empathy within themselves. Another question to ask is this a historical problem for me? Has this been a problem before? Do I really need something in this situation? This kind of addresses those products that fulfill needs that we didn't know that we actually had. So anything that's promising to make your life easier in a certain way. A lot of kitchen gadgets come to mind here. Some of these problems are not problems that we would have thought of if we weren't presented with a solution. Do we need an avocado saver, or have we found a way around that already in our everyday lives? Do we need something to cut things more easily? Has that need come up organically, rather? Because for some people, that need may have come up in an organic way. Did we know we needed it before we saw the product? Is another way to ask this question. And if it's something you're worried about, where did the worry come from? Did it come from the marketing, or did it come from situations that have actually happened in your life? Like, a lot of very valid purchases can be in this category because they do fulfill real needs, but not all of us may have that need. So I'm thinking of small innocuous things. There might be socks that have grips on the bottom for people who don't like slipping on hardwood floors. Now, the first questions to ask in something like this is, do you actually wear socks at home? And have you noticed a problem with slipping on hardwood floors? Because in my case, I don't wear socks at home, but it's still possible that I could be influenced to want those socks if an influencer talked about how great they were, or if I saw enough ads in my face about how awesome they are. Do you actually need, for example, glasses with different frame options if that wasn't something you were already kind of wanting? You know, the option to change up your glasses look. If you hadn't seen that in front of your face, would you have wanted that before? If you're worried about dropping and breaking glass servingware because this new metal option has come out, or these beautiful wooden bowls are in your face on your advertising, and maybe they're marketing saying that they're not breakable like glass or whatever. Have you actually broken a lot of glass dishes in your life? Maybe you have, and maybe this is going to fulfill a real need. You know, there's anything like that that's fulfilling what could be a real need for somebody, but isn't a need for everybody. Is it going to solve a problem that you've had before you saw the product? And I guess the question that goes along with that is, even if this product is going to fulfill a need or somehow reduce the anxiety I might have in a certain situation, is it worth acquiring the product, spending the money, spending the time, spending the resources? Or is it a better pursuit to try to not care about it, to try to not worry about it anymore, to try to reduce my anxiety through more holistic internal means than externally with a purchase? It's like when people tell you to just chill out about something. It's like, well, that would be great, but it's not always that simple. This is me saying that I guess in some cases it is worth it to try to find the path to chilling out, to not worrying. And I will be the first person to tell you that I hate it when people tell me to chill out or be cool or calm down. It feels reductive. It feels like they're not really hearing my problems or considering my needs, my worries, my fears. And that is not what I'm trying to do with this at all. I empathize with any anxieties out there. I feel you, I hear you, I see you. But this is for ourselves that I'm advocating for this. In some of these situations where maybe somebody else told me to chill out or not take something personally or not worry about this because it is how it is or whatever, I can appreciate that my life would have been easier if I had just been able to do that, if I had done more work to be able to approach situations like that in the past. And I guess in some ways that is part of the work that I'm doing now. I'm doing the work to be able to approach these situations in a more chill, level-headed way. So please don't feel like I'm telling you to chill out or just not care about something when I understand how difficult that can feel in the moment. I'm not saying that because I think you'll impose less on other people if you chill out. I'm saying that because you might genuinely find a more peaceful internal place if you do the work to be able to be more calm about certain things or be less reactive. Anyway, back to a lighter question. Another question you can ask is, if I buy this thing, where am I going to put it? Will it be something that I'm eventually done with? And if so, where will it go when I am done with it? How will I get rid of it from my life? Or if it's something that I'm not going to get rid of, where is it going to go in my house? And I actually thought that this question was fairly useless until more recently, because when you have a cluttered environment, a kind of more chaotic form of organization, which is what I would say I have, right? It doesn't really feel like it matters where something is going to go, because you have your own system in your mind, and surely you'll find a place for it and just add it to your mental palace of things. And even if your wardrobe is a mess, or your desk is cluttered, or things are strewn about, or not even necessarily messily, but in a kind of haphazard organizational way, and you've always been able to manage that, the question of where does it go doesn't actually seem that helpful. But now that I've done a little bit more curation of my space, the question of where does it go carries a little bit more weight, because if I do add something to even the haphazard assortment of things on my dresser, for example, I'm looking at it now. If I add one more thing to that arrangement, it will be one more thing to organize at some point. It will be one more thing to possibly declutter at some point. It will be one more thing to dust if it gathers dust. It will be one more thing to get out and rotate in my use of objects if it's something to use. So even though I used to not really think that this was a helpful question, I do see more of the benefits of it now, even as somebody with a non-curated space. So if you have also seen this advice of where will it go and thought, well, that might be good in theory, but in my own life, there's not much point in thinking about that because things are already not picture perfect, I urge you to perhaps reconsider, and even the addition of one small item sometimes will create another list of things that have to be done. Is it worth it? Or is it going to cause more anxiety than will be relieved by the purchase, or you think will be relieved by the purchase? I would say that I have experienced some level of anxiety this year about decluttering my things in a responsible way, because I really don't want things to go to landfill, or the decisions I've made in my previous purchases to have a negative impact on the world. So I feel this weight of trying to rehome things in a conscious way beyond dumping it at Goodwill, because I don't know what's going to happen to those things. If I send it to another person who has opted into receiving it, then I have a better feeling about its use value in its next life. If I can keep things for the use of my children in the future, I have a better sense that they may actually be used possibly in the next few years. And it does weigh on me a little bit to store a whole bunch of extra items as well. So again, the better solution would have been to not accumulate so much in the first place, hence the no buy year, and really making the commitment to me turning this around and reducing my levels of future anxiety by really straightening out this problem right now. So is it worth it? In many cases, when I look back, the answer is no, it's not worth it. And I could have saved myself a lot of emotional stress now this year, and in the years prior to this year when I was consuming too much when I was shopping, by not purchasing so many of those things that I thought would relieve some of my anxiety or solve some kind of problem. This also applies to buying excessive amounts of things that I do like, or things that do feel like they solve a kind of problem for me. It can be easy to fall into this trap in so many different ways. I think I'm going to wrap this video up here, having provided perhaps enough examples of things to think about already. But this conversation is far from over, and I would love to hear your thoughts and takes on it in the comments. I see it everywhere now. Now that I've started observing it, I can't stop seeing it, where products are advertised to fulfill problems that may or may not exist, but they're marketed as things that you need. Advertisements prey on your feelings, your human emotions, to try to make you give up your money to buy these things in the hopes that some of these emotions will be soothed. And it's starting to make me mad. It's starting to make me feel like companies are more interested in taking advantage of people than helping people, even though it's all under the guise of helping. And I've just had enough. So with that, I will close out today's video before this turns into a rant and possibly gets more judgmental than I would like to be on the internet, at least today. And I will say bye for now. I will see you in the next one.